Funcrecol asked me if I want to test their UV putty, and here we are. And since they asked me to test it, I didn't have to pay for the product, but they also didn't tell me anything about what to do with it. In addition to the UV putty that comes in a metal can, they also sent me another product that comes in a syringe. The metal canned putty comes with a solid spatula and cures at your typical UV resin wavelength. A link to a fitting UV torch and to the putties is in the description. You get 50 grams in the can for about 24 bucks and it has a shelf life of 6 months, but I guess it will work longer than that. Your printing UV resin also works way longer than what their expiration dates say. The syringe has 15 grams and costs about 10 bucks. 15 grams doesn't sound like a lot, but to fix small stuff like holes or cracks you also don't need much. Before using the putties on the 3D prints, let's first compare the two products. The putty inside the syringe has a consistency similar to toothpaste, and the other one is much harder. I would say similar to cold coconut oil or a bubblegum that you stick under a table after the taste is gone. But don't use either one of these products near your mouth and always wear nitrile gloves. Due to the consistency of the firmer putty, you can also mold it into shape. I would recommend to hit the putty with UV light for about a minute. In a lot of videos I see people hitting it with a UV light for a homeopathic 5 seconds, but I'll show you the difference in a minute. After the putty was cured, I hit it with primer so we can see the texture better. And I think on the left side the texture of my glove is embedded into the putty, and the one from the syringe comes out really smooth except the swirls that I created. And here you can see that the putty comes out rock solid after curing. I tried to break off this little tip here, but was actually scared to pinch my finger. Next, I wanted to know how careful you have to be with the thickness you apply, because you obviously don't want a putty that is cured on the first millimeter and behind that have uncured putty fiber. So I used an acrylic tube, painted the perimeter black so the UV is blocked as good as possible, filled it up with the putty, wrapped some tape around it so only the front surface is hit by the UV light, and then cured it for a minute. Then I unwrapped it, and as it turns out, the whole thing is rock solid. Then I repeated the test, but this time I only hit it for 10 seconds. And indeed, the inside was still soft. And of course, this was a pretty thick layer, so for a very thin layer, 30 seconds might also be sufficient, but if you want to be on the safe side, just do it for a minute. To clean your tools, just like for your normal UV resin, you can use IPA. Okay, and now let's see what you can actually do with this stuff. The softer putty is very convenient to fill your vent holes. This one was already filled with regular putty, which cracked open while sanding, and instead of filling it with regular putty again and having to wait forever, I just filled it with the UV putty and the whole process was done in 5 minutes. What I didn't know here yet was that the first drops coming out didn't have the actual toothpaste consistency, but runnier, similar to what happens to your ketchup bottles sometimes. And here I also first-handedly experienced how much heat is created by the reaction of the resin. I had this small drop of resin on my glove and I was even wearing another glove under it, and I thought let's just cure the small drop right away. It instantly went crazy hot and a day later I had this blister on my hand, so yeah, don't do that. It was actually when I wanted to use the putty to get rid of FDM print lines when I realized the actual consistency. This part is supposed to be liquid later, so it's crucial that the print lines are gone. To spread the putty, I used a cheap brush that went to the trash afterwards. With my gloved finger, I probably would have gotten an even smoother result, but this is how it looked after just one round of primer. The print lines are not visible anymore. Since the surface was pretty big here, I actually put the piece inside my curing station instead of using the torch. And of course, you can also use the putty to fill gaps between parts. I actually wasn't a big fan of UV products somewhere else than in my printer, but I have to say it is really convenient because you can be way faster in your workflow compared to having to wait for a regular 1K putty or milliput or epoxy sculpt to cure. You can also use the putty to recreate details like I did here on this Miss Marvel resin print, where due to sanding the trim of her bodysuit was almost gone. To bring it back, I used masking tape in a couple of layers to give it the desired height. Then I used a toothpick to apply the firmer putty out of the can. Afterwards I hit it with the UV torch for about a minute, removed the masking tape, and then it received a coat of spray filler and came out like this. And of course, then you can sand it to make it perfectly smooth and her trunks will look like they came crisp and clear out of the printer. Another problem I had to fix for the same project was this cracked piece. I was almost finished sanding this strap and then it cracked. So I glued it back into place with super glue and also added a small metal rod with a 2-component epoxy glue, and now I will use the 2 putties to get rid of the gap. First I sand down into the crack so I have more material to go in there and to make sure the crack doesn't come back. Then I remove all the sanding dust with IPA and use the softer putty to cover up the groove and cure it. To cover up the metal rod I used the firmer putty, but unfortunately I couldn't get that done with the camera in front of my face. But this is how it ended up looking before I hit it with the UV light. And right after that I sanded the area down, hit it with 1 round of filler primer, and this is what it looked like. So the crack is completely gone, but I still need to do a bit more sanding. If you want to see that finished result, make sure to hit the subscribe button for one of my next videos where I will show you the finished version of Ms. Marvel. All in all, I'm really happy to have tried out these 2 putties and will definitely incorporate them into my post-processing workflow to become a bit faster. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll catch you in the next video.